Teamwork isn't just nice to have in business, it's the undisputed competitive advantage. When your team members work as a unified force, your whole operation benefits through higher productivity, thriving creativity, and unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast, where we share with you strategies and tactics to help you develop game-changing teams so that you and your business can make a real difference in the world. Welcome back to Impactful Teamwork, the podcast. My name is Julia Felton, and I am your host and guide for the next 20 minutes while we delve into everything about teamwork. I am a leadership and team engagement specialist, and I just love working with organizations and business leaders and their teams to help them maximize their performance. In today's podcast, we are going to be talking about the power of full engagement. In last week's podcast, we were talking about energy and how energy is so important in business. It's all about energy management for me rather than time management, and how organizations need to learn how to manage this energy level within the business. The level of energy within a business is contagious. It can have either this positive or negative ripple effect, as we've talked about previously. And it's our job as leaders to orchestrate what the level of energy is within our organization and make it the best it can be for everybody within the team. And there's a great book that I would like to signpost you to. It's called The Power of Full Engagement. Managing Energy, Not Time is the Key to High Performance and Personal Renewal by Jim Loehr and Tony Schwartz. And this book's been pretty life-changing for me, actually, to understand not only that energy is so important, but also about the different types of energy and how to renew them. And that's what I promised I would talk about. Because energy, not time, is the fundamental currency of high performance. And I think when we look at high performance within an organization, we've really seen a shift in how leaders look at this. In the old paradigm of how we led businesses, it was all about managing time, avoiding stress, seeing life as a marathon, that downtime was wasted time. It's about rewards fuel performance, self-discipline rules, and the power of positive thinking. And that downtime is wasted time. I think it's really critical. I'm really conscious of the fact that I feel that when I'm not doing something, when I'm not busy, that I'm not being effective and I'm not being productive. And it's taken a lot for me to realize that I actually need to refuel the tank. We talked about that a little bit last week, about the importance of leaders refueling their tank. And I've learned that a lot from the horses. The horses are great at conserving their energy as prey animals. They never know when the danger, the mountain lion, is going to come. So they can't waste loads of energy, because when then they really need it in a time of emergency, they would be depleted in the tank and not have any. So it's taken a lot of hard work in terms of my mindset to realize that actually it's okay and I have permission to take time off. And yes, I am still on my vacation in Greece at the moment, actually practicing what I preach. So sometimes it's hard. It's hard for me to walk away from the business for a couple of weeks and down tools and digitally detox from the business. But it's so important, because I know that when I come back, my performance will be so much more improved because I would have refilled that tank. So we've got this old paradigm of how we used to think that we used to run businesses. And I think nowadays, certainly conscious leaders and what I call unbridled leaders are really realizing that in order to be effective, we're not managing time, but we're managing energy, as we've been talking about. Rather than avoiding stress, we're actually seeking stress, but for short periods to give us kind of adrenaline boost. And therefore, it's about life being a series of sprints, short periods of time where we're really focused, we go full out, and then we rest and relax. So rather than this marathon, life is a series of sprints. Downtime is actually productive time. As I've just been saying, downtime is that ability to refuel, to rethink. I don't know about you, but I get amazing ideas when I step away from the business. I'm in that downtime and my subconscious brain just goes away and figures out the answers to things I've been grappling with for hours and hours. We also are now really appreciating that purpose fuels performance. And a couple of episodes ago, I was talking about the importance of purpose in business because purpose is what really gives us that drive and that energy and that North Star to keep going. We've also begun to realize that rituals rule, as in having this kind of same systems and processes and way that we do things can be super helpful to put structure in place. And we're also realizing the power of full engagement is part of this competitive advantage that we can have. When we can get all of our team members working together and we can then create this superpower when everyone is engaged, that's what gives us that competitive advantage. So energy becomes this X factor that makes it possible to fully ignite the skill and talent within our organization. So in that book here, The Power of Full Engagement, the authors talk about 4 different principles to help create this unbridled engagement within organizations. And let's just delve into each of these principles briefly. So principle 1 is that full engagement requires drawing on 4 separate but related sources of energy: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And we will delve into a minute about how to renew each of these, but I think it's really important for us to realize that we do have these different sources of energy within ourselves. And all the 4 dynamics are critical, and none is sufficient by itself, and each profoundly influence the others. So that means that in order to perform at our best, we've got to skillfully manage each of these interconnected dimensions of energy. And if we subtract any one from the equation, our capacity to fully ignite our talents and skills is diminished. So physical energy is measured in terms of the quantity, high to low, of how much activity we do. Emotional capacity is either positive or negative. And physical and emotional energy are the most important that we have. And principle 2 that they talk about is energy capacity diminishes both with overuse and underuse. So we must balance energy expenditure with intermittent energy renewal. So to maintain a powerful pulse in our lives, we've got to learn how to rhythmically spend and renew our energy. Because in my experience, we really don't give a lot of attention to how we renew and expand our energy reserves. So that's their second principle. Principle 3 is about building capacity. We've got to push beyond our normal limits, training in the same systemic way that elite athletes do. So there's a way that they talk about that we actually have to step out of our comfort zone to do something different. And that we can also build our emotional and spiritual and mental capacity in the same way that we build our physical capacity. So I think many of you will be familiar with the concept of when you go to the gym, you do the weight training, for example, and you start increasing the amount of weights you lift each week, and slowly you get stronger. You build that muscle. But I think what I think really is a big takeaway from their book here is this importance of building our emotional and mental and spiritual muscle as well. And their 4th principle is that positive energy rituals, highly specific routines for managing energy, are the key to full engagement and sustained high performance. So they also talk here about us having our own system and process for managing our own energy levels. And a positive ritual is a behavior that becomes automatic over time, and it's fueled by some deeply held values. So if you remember on the last episode, I was talking about we need to instill good well-being habits to manage our energy. And we need to do that as the 1% change, not trying to change everything overnight, but one small change that we do each and every day, one small ritual that we do each and every day magnifies up to make a big difference. Because when we change the energy, we can change the outcome of something. So let's just talk a little bit about these 4 different dimensions of energy. Because I think most of us are probably familiar with our physical energy. And often, if we're feeling and you're working at your desk and you're really struggling and you can't move something forward, then the thing I always say to my clients is get up and move. Because I think physical energy is the starting point for everything. The more we move our body, the more things change. And I think really important to remember this relationship between emotions and energy. Emotions are simply energy in motion, right? So if we're not feeling in a great state emotionally, then one of the great ways to move it is to physically get up and move our body, and it just changes everything. And of course, the latest neuroscience shows that working out and staying physically fit increases brain power, enables you to get more completed each day, thus boosting productivity and profitability. And I know a friend of mine recently was going through some tough times with their own emotional well-being. And one of their counselors really suggested that one of the top things that they should do every day was stay active. The thing they particularly loved to do was riding their bike. So that's what they started to do. And it was really incredible to see the difference that happened when they got out and did that physical exercise, doing something that they loved. And remember, I spoke about in the last podcast, the important thing with physical well-being is doing an activity that you actually love, not because everyone says this is the one you should do. So for my friend, it was riding their bike. For me, it's being outside and being with my horses. For other people, it might be doing my friend Zoe. She's a great triathlete. She knows nothing better than doing a triathlon. I can't think of anything worse, but doing something to renew our physical energy in the way that works well for us. Richard Branson, obviously the global entrepreneur, he's a great proponent of physical exercise. And he actually believes that staying fit and working out is the most important activity he can do in his business because it helps him become more productive, increases his energy levels, reduces his stress, and improves his stamina. However, it's not just managing our physical energy. Remember, we said all the 4 energy sources are equally important. It's also about managing our emotional energy. And while physical energy provides the raw fuel for igniting our emotional skills, it's when our physical energy reserves are depleted that we often experience negative emotion. That's really interesting. When our physical energy is depleted, our emotional energy becomes depleted. And if I think back to the example of my friend being told to ride his bike, what a massive difference that actually made to his emotional state when he got out on the bike. And the negative emotions are things like anger and frustration that we get when things don't go to plan. We can't see the wood for the trees. We become a bit of a pessimist about the future. And that's what can take us on this kind of downward spiral of well-being that ultimately, if not checked, can end up in depression and really frustration. And in the worst cases, suicide. Conversely, when our physical energy levels are high, generally we're less emotionally derailed when bad things happen because we're feeling very positive. We've got high levels of energy. We seem to be able to navigate things more effectively. So as I said, emotions are literally energy in motion. And whilst physical energy is measured in terms of quantity, low to high, emotional capacity is measured in terms of quality, that negative to positive. And shame, guilt, and anger are what we call negative emotions, and things like acceptance, love, happiness, and joy are positive emotions. And therefore, really our aim is to get ourselves into a quadrant where we experience a combination of high physical energy and combined with positive emotions. And there is a graphic that I will put in the show notes that shows on the horizontal axis, emotions going from negative to positive, and on the vertical axis, energy going from high to low. And you might just want to grab a pen and just draw this out as I'm talking to it. So if you just put a cross in your piece of paper, and bottom left-hand corner, that's going to be the low energy negative emotions zone. So that's what we would call the burnout zone, when people are depressed, exhausted, burnt out, hopeless, and sad. Top left-hand quadrant is where we have high energy and negative emotions. And this can be a kind of survival zone where we've got the emotions of anger and fear and anxiousness and defensiveness and impatience. And then bottom right-hand corner, low energy negative emotions. That's a renewal zone. So we're relaxed, we're carefree, we're peaceful, we're tranquil, relieved. That's where we need to go to rest and restore. And then top right-hand corner, high energy, positive emotions. That's our performance zone, where we're enthusiastic, engaged, confident, optimistic, and challenged. I promised you I'd share some ways that we can restore our energy in each of these different quadrants. Our physical energy. So when we think about physical energy, we often think about the physical exercise, like I said, riding a bike, walking, triathlon, whatever it might be. But our physical energy is also massively impacted by what we eat, the fuel we put in our body. So healthy eating. It's also impacted by the amount of water we drink. Our body is 80 to 90% water, and most of us just aren't drinking enough water. A lot of the time, actually, we're feeling tired because we are dehydrated. So drinking water is super important to help maintain those high levels of energy that we want. And of course, if we remember that our body is made up mainly of water, then we must restore that water. And most of us aren't restoring the water levels, as I said, in our body, which is why we're dehydrated and depleted. But another way that we can improve our physical energy is by getting more sleep. It's very easy when we have a lot to do on our to-do list to feel that the area that we can give up on, that we can take some chunks away from, is our sleep. But our sleep is so restorative and it's so important for the way the body operates. I've actually, for the last year or so, been tracking my sleep patterns every night. And I now make sure I get at least 8 hours a night. And it really is amazing how that has helped me actually be more productive. I know it sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? And we talked about this before, this need to rest and relax. Actually, we can have better performance when we're working on a full tank. And I actually find the days that I get the maximum amount of sleep that I need are the days then that I'm most productive the following morning because I'm really restored. And there's some amazing trackers that you can use. I used one called Zoop for a while. I've now got an Apple iWatch. I track my sleep on my iWatch, and it tells me how much I'm in a restorative sleep, and really helpful to see and track what you're doing and when you're getting your best sleep. So emotional energy, how are we going to restore this? I actually think that breathing exercises are a great way to help with this, because this allows our brain to almost reset itself, and it focuses our energy and our attention when we breathe. Because, of course, we're breathing all day, every day, but most of us aren't thinking about it. We're not consciously breathing. It's something that happens unconsciously. So emotional energy means that we need to gives us the fuel for the mental skills that we need. And nothing interferes with performance and engagement more than our inability to concentrate. So we've got to be able to sustain concentration and adjust our thinking between people and tasks, big picture and detailed focus. There's a lot of different ways that we need to fuel our emotional competency. And as I said, breathing is one way because it really slows us down. And I think I've spoken about it before in a previous podcast, but the concept of what I call box breathing, which is when you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you breathe out for 4, and you hold for 4. Box breathing, breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. And just taking a moment to do this, and it doesn't take long. You can do this with just a minute. You can maybe have 2 or 3 rounds of box breathing within a minute. And it can just make a massive difference. It really helps ground yourself into your body and focus on yourself and be really present with what you're doing as you breathe and how that changes the environment around you. I've shared previously about how when in a really excitable situation with my horses, how I have to ground myself and box breathe in order to change the energy of the situation. And just before I came away on holiday, I was actually out with my friend on the yard here. We were taking the horses out for a walk in hand, and we actually came across a pony and trap, something we rarely see around here. Pony and trap came past us, and her horse just turned into this fire-breathing dragon. And we were on a country lane, and our horse was just very high energy. And what we both had to do was, in that moment, drop into box breathing. We really had to ground ourselves. Remember, I said you can change the energy of a situation by changing your energy. We brought our energy down. We stayed very calm and controlled and collective. And that helped the horse bring his energy down and get back into a state where we could actually have some civil conversation with him and help him get back to the yard without him having a complete meltdown. Some of the other activities that fuel optimal mental energy include mental preparation, so that visualization, positive self-talk, and creativity. And this is why we see athletes that they're encouraged to visualize winning the race. Since the brain can't distinguish between reality and imagination, it tricks the brain into believing that something's already occurred, so making the probability of that success higher. And this principle can also be used in business and your home life too. If there's something you really want to happen, then spend time visualizing it every day. Imagine it's happening. Think about and acknowledge when that event happens. How do you feel? What's going on? What do you see? Maybe what do you smell? What do you taste? If your desire is to have a house by the seaside, spend time just sitting there, imagining exactly what that house looks like. Just paint it out in your mind's eye. Listen to the waves crashing around you. Feel the sand between your toes. And really get into that space, because as I said, the brain doesn't know the difference between what's imagined and reality. That's an interesting thought, isn't it? So we put ourselves in the space where we're imagining this day in, day out, then that's what you're tricking your mind into believing that's happening day in, day out, and that's possible. So we can use the same in business. You visualize before you have a sales call about the success of that call and what it's going to feel like when that client signs up for you. You can visualize within the team the success of the team, what happens when that team achieves that winning solution. And then it will happen. Meditation is also another great way that people help master their levels of unbridled energy. Because meditation naturally slows down the brain and gets people really present and focused. And it mitigates the relentless chatter going on in the mind. And so it can bring clarity and improved concentration. And I know some people find it difficult to shut off and meditate. And one of the great things you can do is you can do things like walking meditations. You can do guided meditations. There's a load of great apps out there, places like things like Headspace that can really help with this. I've got some Deepak guided meditations because I'm not the best at just shutting off. So actually, when I'm listening to a guided meditation, that works well for me. Might be different for you. Once we've mastered managing our energy levels, we need to think about how our spiritual energy decides how we will spend it by determining the action we will take. Spiritual energy is the most powerful source of motivation, perseverance, and direction. And spiritual energy refers to the connection to values and purpose that are beyond our self-interest. This is what ignites our human spirit to achieve our purpose and fulfill our mission. And spiritual energy is fueled by your character. It needs courage and conviction to live your values. And it's sustained by balancing a commitment to others with adequate self-care. So this is why it's so important to embed purpose into the organization so that everyone can get aligned and feel part of the achievement through their impact and contribution. And this is why we dedicated a whole episode to purpose and why it was so important in business. So as we close off today, it's really important that we think about how do we balance our energy expenditure with our energy renewal. Because I think no one disputes today that we live in a 24/7 world where events happen at lightning pace. We have more information than ever available to us, and the speed of transformation has increased exponentially, prompting a sense of permanent urgency and endless distraction. We have more of everything to do, more emails, more social media, more meetings to attend, more tasks to get done. And we feel we need to continually work to avoid falling behind. And technologies that make instant communication possible anywhere have sped up decision making. And that's a good thing because things are happening faster, but it's also the thing that hampers and overwhelms us because we feel that we never get anything done. We never feel that we get to the end of our to-do list. I don't know about you. I never do. And I think this has just also been a bit compounded by the changes in workplace practices. Now, a number of us are working from home. We have hybrid working situations. So we've now got this blur between our home and work lives. Before, at least, you got everything done at work that you could get done. You left and you came home, and we had a distinct break between them. Nowadays, we don't. And for many people, they find it quite difficult to shut off their work life from their home life, particularly when they're working in the same place. In fact, one of my clients recently was sharing what they did because they now work from home. And in the old days, the great old commute to work was a great way to put that delineation between home and work. So what this particular client does is in the morning when they get up, before they go to work, in other words, into their office in their house, they actually get up, they walk around the block where they live, and then they come back through their front door and go upstairs to their office to work. And at the end of the night, they come downstairs, they go out the front door, they walk around the block and they come back. That's just a great example of putting in a ritual. And we were talking about the importance of rituals earlier on. That helps them make that clear break between work and home. And it's something you might want to think about too. Because our bodies have this natural rhythm and cycle to it, and they do need time to rest and relax and refuel. And the real challenge that I see in many organizations is so many of us are still operating on empty. Many people approaching burnout, and this is why we have so many mental health challenges in the workplace. Because as a society, we've overridden the natural rhythms that once defined our lives. And so the challenge is, how do we consciously and deliberately create these new boundaries so that we can rest and restore? Because nature understands that energy is a finite resource and that you need to renew it regularly. And that's why there's an ebb and flow to everything in nature. There's a time to grow, a time to rest. And my horses are actually, as I said, masters about managing energy. They know that they need to spend downtime so that they have the energy when a time of adversity happens. They've got that full tank of energy available should they have to run for their survival. And so the horses don't get embarrassed about taking this downtime. They just know how important it is to do. The other thing the horses do really well is not just this physical renewal of energy by not wasting too much, but also this emotional renewal. Because when you look at a herd of horses, the horses have some quite difficult conversations with each other. Sometimes horses biting each other, but they don't then walk around for the rest of the day going, "Oh, I'm really upset that horse Toby bit me today." They just let it go, and they do what we call go back to grazing. They don't hold on to those negative emotions, which humans, I see many humans doing, that really deplete our energy levels because we're holding on to that negative emotion. And remember, like attracts like. So we're holding on to this negative emotion that's not great for us. The horses are great at just letting it go back to grazing. They don't hold any grudges as far as we know. They just let it all go. And I would really encourage you as well to think about, how do you go back to grazing and let negative emotions about people or situations just dissipate after the event and not hold on to them? Because all the time that you hold on to them, that's going to be a drain on your emotional store of energy, and that's going to impact your performance. Wow, I've got through a lot today. I hope you realize this whole concept of energy management and looking after our own energy so that we become fully engaged is a topic that I'm so passionate about. It's so important that as leaders, we learn to harness the energy of our people effectively, create the right environments where they can thrive and be engaged so that we can get the best out of everyone. And it's not just from a selfish point of view, because of course, as a business owner and a business leader, the more engaged my team members are, the more productivity they're going to produce, the more profitability that's going to bring for my business. But from a team member's perspective, the more engaged they are, the more enthusiastic they are, the more empowered they are, the more they're going to excel and enjoy their job. And then we're going to create a better energy and environment to work in. And again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this powerful engagement and how we can manage these 4 different levels of energy that we have within ourselves and within our business. And please do send me your comments and thoughts on this. And as always, if you'd love to come on the podcast, please do reach out to me. I always love to hear about what my clients are doing and what people are doing to improve energy levels, improve teamwork within your business. It's been great to have you on the show again today. So thank you so much again for your time and energy. I know that you can spend your valuable time on many things. So thank you for listening in. I look forward to seeing you again and meeting you again on the next podcast. And I really hope that you have an amazing day and you find some time to renew and restore your energy levels this week and definitely over the summer months. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast. Please stay tuned for future episodes and do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favorite platform. Recommendations are essential for attracting new listeners. Please follow us on social media at Julia Felton and @Business Horsepower. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover on future episodes, please do let me know. Remember, you and your team are always making an impact. What impact will you make today?